Hello and welcome to Nintendo Pals Podcast. Tonight, we are going to be giving our spoilery review of Tears of the Kingdom and talking about other games that we're playing. Micah, are you ready?
Yep.
Hey, it's Nintendo Pals, the weekly show all about Nintendo and friendship. And if you are new here and you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and leave us a thumbs up. And if you're listening on your podcast listening app of choice, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps the show out immensely. Helps us out. We love it. Let's just jump on into it, Micah. What do you say?
Say okay.
Okay. Micah, what have you been playing? What's been new in your gaming repertoire? Is that is that right?
Of course. Yeah, I think so. Of course, the classics. Been playing some Rocket League. Been playing some Splatoon 3. Go play a bit more Tears of the Kingdom. Besides that, apparently not much else.
Well, you and I have been playing another game that we're going to talk about for this week's PAL topic because its outreach is pertaining to Nintendo, although it's not Nintendo. And the game we're talking about is Baldur's Gate 3, which is awesome. You and I are both really enjoying. Yep. I think. I think you're enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I'm liking it. But myself, what have I been playing? I've been playing 2 games primarily. One, I finished up Tears of the Kingdom's shrines. I got all of the shrines. And 2, a brand new game that I picked up this last month that absolutely sucked away my life, which is fitting because the game is Vampire Survivors. This game is so good. I love Vampire Survivors. It is such a me kind of game. It's like a top-down auto shooter, bullet storm. What would you call these games where you're like progressively leveling up your character mid battle?
You just survive waves of enemies.
It's like Risk of Rain like in its power-up progression, right? You're like picking up these things and your attacks are just getting crazier and crazier. I feel like it's very similar to Risk of Rain in that regard. And enemies are getting more and more, and by the end, I've gotten to the point now where the game can't handle what's happening on screen. It's so much stuff. And it's a lot of fun. There's so many characters and things to unlock. There's bosses. It's way deeper than it first appears.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of content that you can unlock throughout that game.
Yeah, I enjoyed it so much that I actually picked up both the DLC packs as well, which come with new weapons and new characters, some of which are like my favorite characters in the game. There's this character named Eleanor that you play as, who is a wizard that gets 3 different spells, just like spell string, spell blast, and third one. And when you max out the levels on all 3 of those, you just get this like one super spell casting thing that is just constantly going on screen with every once in a while a big huge boom effect. And it's pretty satisfying to level all of those up and then get it all as this one big super powered thing. I'm liking the game a lot, and I've unlocked some pretty interesting side characters. I think my favorite character though is I think the name is Poplio or Popio. You play as a tree. Your movement
It sounds terrible.
your movement is like 50% less than than any of the other characters. So like when you first start, you can't move at all, and you just have to hope that you get a wing thing, a wing of which is like the speed up. And but they do start with a fully evolved weapon, and evolved weapons are basically like maxed power basic items. So a fully evolved weapon that gives you like a shield bubble around you. So for the first 5 minutes of the game, well, no, I'd say like first 2 minutes of the game, most enemies won't be able to hurt you because they'll run into that bubble and die. So, which is good because you can't move. But if you are unfortunate and you get some sort of boss type character in those early rounds, it will just run in there and you're dead because you can't outrun it and you're not dealing enough damage to get rid of it. So that's fun. That's fun. But that's what I've been playing primarily is just those two games.
Like, can't forget Pokemon Sleep,
I
which you
haven't
played for a little bit.
I haven't been playing Pokemon Sleep, but you know what I have been playing? Pokemon Go. A lot of Pokemon Go. Still going strong with that. We just had the event this last weekend with all the like Primal Kyogre and Primal Groudon and Mega Rayquaza, and I forgot that that event was going on, so I didn't get a Mega Rayquaza, but I did get a Primal Groudon. He's pretty
That's
cool.
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have one of those because don't you have to go do like a raid or something with a bunch of people?
Yeah, and they were beefy raids too, man. Like you had to they would like wipe teams if you don't have a large amount of people. It is what it is. But anywho, I say like we jump over to what what
Review
our
part?
review. It's reviews day. It's Tuesday reviews day. So let's jump into it. For those that are still looking to avoid spoilers for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, this is your warning. Come back next episode. Woo. And for those watching live, that will be in about 10 minutes. As we talk Tears of the Kingdom. All right? Spoilers. We're talking all of it here. Micah, what did you think of Tears of the Kingdom?
It was pretty good.
I agree. It was very good. It was really good. I'd say that this is now my favorite Zelda game. I can confidently say I like this one more than Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild was
Yeah.
my previous favorite, so kind of makes sense, right? That this, yeah.
I feel like the only almost negative thing I can say about the game isn't really even much of a negative thing, but with all the potential of the Zonai devices and what you can do with them, you're and the abilities they give you, you're almost too powerful. Like you can just break shrines and solve them however you want by just like rewinding and standing on objects essentially.
Yeah, it's true.
I had to limit myself in like all these shrines. I'm like, I'm going to go through these shrines and I'm going to do them like the correct way, like do the actual puzzles instead of just almost essentially just like legit cheesing your way through, which they totally let you do, and that's an option if you enjoy it. But
I also feel like the enemies were much tankier because, like, maybe to compensate for this. So, like, even basic enemy camps will have like a silver bokoblin in them, and those take a lot of hits. So,
yeah, on
like
leveled up things always take forever.
yeah, early game, it feels like things are too strong, and that's because late game you're just going to be wiping the floor with everything
I
because
actually feel like I remember being more difficult at the beginning of Breath of the Wild. Maybe I was just kind of used to it on this one. But like basic enemies at the beginning didn't seem quite as hard as they did in the original.
huh. Well, that's also because we start on the Sky Island in this game, and I feel like the constructs on the Sky Island are just like I don't know, they're super easy, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so maybe that's it, and it's like the Great Plateau was significantly harder, I think, than the Sky Islands. Although the Sky Islands, I had the most difficult time getting to uh the one shrine up in the ice area. 'Cause there's like a pretty specific route you have to take to get there. And if you don't find the cave or whatever to get up to that, you're gonna be struggling for a while. I ended up just using like those floating platforms and making stairs to get up
Oh,
to it.
nice.
Yeah. Anywho, let's talk about the game as far as we can break down its different parts. Story for me, I thought was really good. A noticeable improvement from what we had with Breath of the Wild for story. I really liked the time travel, not really time travel, but the like time mechanic that was basically a recycle from Breath of the Wild, right? You would see the memories of Princess Zelda and you at these different places. But in this game, you're kind of seeing what Zelda is doing, and it feels more like parallel to what you're doing, if that makes any sense. It feels less like, oh, this is a memory of what happened, and more like this is where Zelda is. Because at least for a little bit, you don't even know that she went to the past.
Yeah, she just fell into a hole and disappeared in a ball of light. Like, well, that's cool, I guess.
Yep. Yep. So I liked the story. I think it was it 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 just felt more substantial than Breath of the Wild's story, where that one just felt like it focused more on gameplay, and this one felt like it had. I don't know. It just felt more substantial. It just felt more substantial because you also have the present stuff happening, which is, hey, we've got 4 anomalies that have come because the castle flew up into the sky and things fell from the sky. And so now you're going to the 4 like major cities throughout Hyrule, and along the way helping recruit like party members, not really, but they're sages.
Sage. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sage spirits, usually.
those sage spirits will join you, and you that's you need to collect 4,
Gotta collect
and
them all.
then you can go take on uh Ganondorf
Just
in the
collect
castle.
4, you say?
Well, that's the thing. In a twist, there's actually a 5th sage, the robot sage, which
Yep. Which you don't actually have to wait to be your 5th sage.
right. You got
That
it.
was actually the 3rd stage I got, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, cuz you
Ran
navigated a
around an island, a sky island, almost completely blind in a thunderstorm.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool twist of sorts. I wasn't I was expecting another sage, but once all 4 regional phenomena were cleared up, I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess maybe I'll be the 5th sage," or like I wasn't quite sure how that was going to work. And then come to find out that it's just straight Minoru who was in the past and transferred. Her spirit was with you all along. Wow. So story I thought was really good. The some highlights of the story for me, anything with Ganondorf in it.
Oh, absolutely.
He was so good. It was so great. Matt Mercer did a fantastic job with the voice acting for Ganondorf, and just the lines that he had. He was intimidating, and I mean, he didn't really have much like backstory or motivation. He's just
Just
kind of
wanting
like,
power.
yeah, he's just kind of like what Ganondorf always is. Is just that man is evil. He's an
The
evil
man with
man.
the evil eyes.
Yeah, he's the man with the evil eyes. But that's he was so good, and I guess story wise for the ending, I thought was so hype. You infiltrate the I don't know, I don't even know what you'd call it. His lair,
The
which was
gloom tree, like what it is.
a gloom tree. Is that?
Pretty much. I mean, there's like the gloom spread throughout the roots. It's how like spread through all of at least the depths.
I
You see a
didn't
lot of like
even
those gloom
realize that. I didn't.
roots and stuff.
I had no idea that that was how that happened. But that makes sense why it was all wooden and and it was like a giant tree that you were just kind of like an anti Deku tree.
Oh, exactly.
That's cool. Yeah, so you infiltrate that lair area and he's like withered mummy Ganondorf and then does a ground pound and turns into buff muscly Ganondorf. Really
My
cool.
Ganondorf.
Did you say hot Ganondorf?
Heck
they
yeah.
they made him really big. He is huge, like double your size. Like wow, like
And then
all
he gets
right.
like even bigger. And then he
Yeah.
gets bigger again, actually.
Well, it's I know this isn't like really story, but let's talk about the final boss fight because I think it's one of the most hype moments in any video game ever. Um, what did you think of the final boss fight? Any highlights for you?
But all three stages.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it
thought it
is
was
a
really
spoiler
good.
cast. We can talk about whatever we want.
Yeah. I like how it kind of built up. Like the first part is like relatively basic. You're kind of fighting a mostly normal like sword user. And then it kind of ramps up in stage two and then it goes crazy in stage three.
Even for stage one, when he first dodges, he will flurry dodge one of your attacks, and
Yeah, and then you have to dodge back.
yeah, he's the only enemy character that does that ever. So
Yeah. So that's cool.
it's out of nowhere, and I was just like, my mind was blown. I was like, oh no, he could dodge me, and I thought he was going to come in for a flurry rush, but he doesn't do that. Thankfully, you'd be dead. He flurry rushes you. Oh, could you imagine though if they had included that you flurry rush each other? And it's just like a anime Dragon Ball Z fight where they're like just like punching crazy fast at each other. Yeah, so you fight him as a normal sword user, and then the transition from phase 1 to phase 2 was also super hype.
Yep.
I'm are you do you remember what happens?
I'm pretty sure I remember.
That's where
When he
that's
turned
where
into the Demon King
he
with the
turns
health
to
bar.
yeah, yeah, the health bar. So
I'm like 99% sure this isn't the first game to do that. I'm pretty sure I've seen that before, but it's so good.
it's so great. Yeah, he's like, I'm. The line he says is, "I'm not even nearing the limits of my power," and then he like does a robe throw and transforms into just like friggin' Demon King Ganondorf, which looks like Demise from Skyward Sword, and the health bar starts to go. And you're like, oh man, he's
So it starts
recharging back to full
refilling.
health. He's recharging back to full health. And then it just keeps going. And the music's like, dun, 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 dun. You're like, oh. I mean, it's super gimmicky, but I loved it. I was
It
eating it
was
up,
great.
man. I was eating it up. And I thought that would be it. I was like, there's once you beat him, I was like, dang, that was such a good final boss fight. That wasn't the end, man. That wasn't the end. Oh, we after that, he rips the gem out of his forehead, which is one of the secret stones. So we didn't really hit on this for the story side of things, but one of the story elements is that Zelda has turned herself into a dragon in order to get back to the future, or at least to help
to get the Master Sword back to the future while being powered up, but while
Exactly.
losing herself.
And so Ganondorf goes, I can do that too. And I kid you not, I wasn't quite expecting this. No, I wasn't expecting this at all. But I realized what was happening after he pulled it off. I was like, oh no. And then you get like a really cool. It's basically the same as Breath of the Wild with the Dark Beast Ganon, right? It's the third phase. It's pretty easy,
Yeah.
and it's just this
It's
like
not
giant.
necessarily the most satisfying gameplay wise, but as it just felt really epic.
Yeah, it looks really good. It looks incredible. I'd say it looks way better than the Dark Beast Ganon fight, which is just I'm
Yeah.
fighting Ganon in a big empty field. This is like over Hyrule, a battle of dragons, and
Yeah,
you're
because
like,
Dragon Zelda comes and helps.
yeah, man, it's so hype. And then I gotta talk about this. This is my favorite part of of the final fight is when you defeat him and he explodes. And it is the coolest
A
explosion.
nuclear bomb. But
He's the
actually,
coolest explosion in any game I have ever seen. it's it's so over the top. And Link's just looking at it while on the dragon from a distance, just nuclear explosion, a laser sky
I hope
beam.
nobody lived in that 17-mile radius.
Yeah, everybody's dead under there. Every single person. Yeah, so the final
But
boss
speaking
sequence.
of explosions, actually, I gotta mention. So all like the four regional disturbance bosses explode real big, and it's fitting and intense for all of them. But the Muktarok is like a weird little squid dude that dies and then just blows up in the most dramatic way. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
It just seems so out of the blue. It like withers into some like dried squid, and you're like, oh, it's dead, and then it just massive explosion.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
That was one of the highlights of that game for me.
Uh, man, it was so good. Yeah, it was just a really great game overall for story. For the boss battles, I liked the dungeons a lot. I mean, we're going a bit
The
too in the weeds
Gerudo
here.
region was the best dungeon, though, I think.
I liked that one a lot. I think it's between that one for me and the Fire Temple.
I actually did not like the Fire Temple much. I think that might be my least favorite.
Really, I'm trying to remember. So then you got the which one am I forgetting? Oh, I'm forgetting Sidon's Temple, which that one was pretty cool because the whole thing was zero gravity.
Yeah.
That felt pretty unique. Yeah, I liked them all. I think they all were pretty good. So temple design, level design, world design. This world feels packed. It's huge. It's more than double the size of Breath of the Wild. So to get this game, to get basically you have the whole overworld, which they've packed with way more stuff than I think was in Breath of the Wild, and then you have a whole
Yeah,
underworld.
even with just the caves they added, there's like so
Yeah,
much more.
yeah. And then you also have the Sky Islands, and you have a whole underworld. So like the game's huge. The game is really big. Mechanics wise, I really liked the new arm abilities, right?
Ultra
The
Hand.
yeah, Ultra Hand, the Fusion, Recall. I thought those all worked really well. They were really fun to mess around with. Like you said, it could get a little broken very fast with
Yeah,
using those
because
abilities.
you have too much power with what you can do.
Yeah.
And I kept forgetting to like use it, but I found out if you attach one of those hover stone things to an arrow, you can just like shoot it out and make floating platforms underneath you.
Yep.
If you ever need to just chill in the air somewhere,
Yeah.
or you can
It,
just like shoot them out to make steps to places.
yeah. Yeah. and you could just like you could throw it up and recall it, and so if it comes down, yeah, there's a lot you could do. Overall, so we talked story, we talked how the game looks, we talked about gameplay. Anything else we want to highlight here for review?
What else is there?
I mean, we could talk about amount of content. You and I both have finished all of the shrines.
Yep.
And
that was
that was pretty. I felt like they were all pretty good. I thought there were too many that were just gimmies. Right, like you just go in and get that thing.
Oh yeah, because the Raru's blessing. A lot of them they had challenges to get to the shrine. So then those shrines would just be like, okay, you made it here, here's your reward. Except for one, which was awesome. The one that seems like it's a gimme.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I noticed I walked into it, I was like, this doesn't say Raru's blessing. What's going on here? And then it got weird. And it was awesome.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Man, you're too smart. You're too smart, Micah. I didn't notice that. And it's just like
there's something about like trial of fire or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's suspicious.
That was a cool one. I do like some of them felt really really unique and cool. I loved all the ones where it's basically a mini Eventide Island from Breath of the Wild.
Those are my favorite as well.
They take away all of your gear and you just have to use what's there in the shrine. I'm glad they had a bunch of those because
those were a lot of fun.
Those were all really satisfying to complete. Overall, I'd say this game's a 10 out of 10. There are some maybe minor tweaks and improvements I think could be made, but overall, I think this is as good as a game as you're going to get.
It's as good as you can expect anyone to make.
I wish there was voice acting for more than just the few cutscenes, because there's not a ton of dialogue in this game. Although all the characters do have like unique conversations based off. I don't know if you noticed this, but it's way more dynamic than it was in Breath of the Wild. They'll be talking about the weather, the outfits you're wearing.
Oh yeah,
and
you can water the Zora, and they're like, "Oh, thanks."
Yeah.
Like, there's even like the random NPCs just have like so many different dialogue options depending on like the environment and what's happening with the weather and like how you interact with them.
It's true.
I mean, it doesn't really change the game or anything, but I feel like a lot went into that.
Yeah. So, Michael, overall, what would you give this a score?
I'd probably give it a 100% pretty good.
100% pretty good.
That's the best rating I can give a game.
That's a 10 out of 10 for the Nintendo pals. That's what you got from us here. Well, this has been this episode of Nintendo Pals Podcast. Hey, Micah, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitch and YouTube at Micah Prime.
Hey, and you can find me on Twitch and YouTube at Andros1. And you can follow the show, Nintendo Pals, on YouTube, Twitch, and on all the social medias. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/NintendoPals, where for as little as $1, you can support the show and be a part of our Patreon PokeRap, the shout-out we do at the end of every episode, which we will end this episode with right now. We gotta rap some Patreon.
You just do the singing. I'll take care of the hard part.
Let's get it on.
We want to be the best that ever was. And shout out our pals over on Patreon.
LPD, Rizzo, Retro Logic Dan, Tin, the Nintendo Dash, Limp, or Spider Chance, Solo something, Mute Dog the Game, Little Miss 7, and Monkey Thunder.
Catch 'em, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Patreon.
Kid, Fiasco, Third Strongest Mole, Fedorable Will, All, and Seth Sturgill, Cosmic, Purple, Viola, That Fast John, and Mother Plays too.
Gotta catch 'em all.
Yeah.
Gotta catch 'em all.
Yeah.
Gotta catch 'em all. Patreon. Let's get 150 or more.